Good evening, guys, and welcome to, yes, Jamie, session. It is the session 4 INAC NSS this evening. If that's what you're looking for, then you are in the right place. Okay, so just one or two more people still joining, and then we can begin. So very welcome. Happy to see some of you online. It's great that you guys are here. The session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to your YouTube playlist, and you'll be able to listen to it again there, and everybody else who's not online now will also be able to access the recording as they're getting ready for their assignment. Okay. Okay, so let's just jump right in so we don't waste anybody's time. I know your evenings are precious, especially most of you that are working. So let's get going. Okay, so this evening is your national support session for your first assignment for Introduction to Accounting. So this is just an opportunity for you guys to ask me any questions that you might have come across already for your assignment. And then I'm going to go over some technical housekeeping issues regarding the assignment, and then a short discussion on each of the questions where I explain to you, make sure that you understand what each question is requiring from you. Sure you answer the question correctly, because that is absolutely critical. There's so many students that lose marks because they misread or they don't do what's required. So and then we'll just take a brief look at each of the questions, and I've got this document that's on the screen at the moment, which is what I call the assignment brief, which is basically the housekeeping issues that you must take note of. And this I will upload to your where will I put it? I'll put it into your announcements and probably also the more resources tomorrow morning. And then there's a second document called the lesson plan that we'll go through together on the screen, and I'll also upload that document for you guys as well. So you will have access to all of the documents, well, or both of the documents that we we'll be looking at this evening. And then remember, your assignment is basically 1 week from today. Not a week, sorry, it's on a Monday. Today is Wednesday, and your assignment is due on a Monday. I'll just take a quick look at my calendar. (22nd). Yeah, so it's just over a week. So you've got a little bit longer than a week from today to complete your assignment. So during that time, as you're working on the assignment, if there are any questions that you've got, then send me an email or a message via the messaging system on Learn so that I can help you. And the most important thing, guys, is it's so important that you ask questions. Okay, whoopsie, what am I doing there? It really is so important that you ask questions. You must never be shy or hesitant or too lazy to type out an email to ask me a question. There's no question, and I know you probably heard this, that's too silly or too unimportant, or that you think is I'll be cross with you if you ask me the question. There's absolutely not. You must ask any questions that you've got, because that's what we as tutors are here for, is to assist you guys through those hiccups when you come across things that you don't understand or you're not sure what to do. So obviously always we can't give you answers to any of the questions, but we can help you where there's something that you don't understand or you're not sure why something was done the way it is, or not sure where to find something. Whatever else you can think of. Okay, those students that ask questions regularly, always without fail, do well. Okay, and that doesn't count the student that sends me a question 1 hour before upload time, and that that one won't count, and believe me, I get plenty of those too. Okay. All right, so then anybody got a question now before we start? Anything at all? Doesn't matter what. And remember, as we're going through this, if you have a question, type it in the chat box, and then I'll pick it up as I'm going along. I'll keep checking to make sure that I haven't missed any questions. Can come back to it. Or otherwise, you can just pop up your electronic hand or digital hand, and then you open your mic and speak. It's not, there's no formality. It's really just a casual session so that we can chat about the assignment. Okay. So the document that's on the screen at the moment, this is the one that I call the assignment brief. And this, as I said, is just really housekeeping, but it is so important. First two learning units are what you have to have covered in order to do this assignment. And because this is a numeric module, and that's the reason why, you guys must upload a PDF file. So it doesn't matter whether you handwrite your work, that's perfectly fine, and or whether you type the assignment up on Word, but however you do it, it doesn't matter. But what does matter is that when you finished it, if you've used a Word document, you export it to a PDF file, and the PDF file is what is uploaded. And if you've handwritten it, you scan those pages into one PDF document in the correct order. Pages must be numbered. So when you finished your writing, you handwrite a number on every single page so that you know they are 100% in the correct order. Questions are numbered correctly. Scan it into one PDF document, and then you upload that. Okay, so this is what this blurb on this document is about. I do not want a Word document. Do not upload a Word document. I mark on PDFs, so that's what I need. Your document is not going to be checked by SafeAssign for plagiarism because it is numbers and calculations and journals and tables, etc. So that's also why we use PDFs and why I mark a PDF and not a Word document. So again, you can ignore any similarity reports from SafeAssign. The system will still produce the SafeAssign report, but just ignore that. So don't panic whatever it happens, whatever you happen to see. Okay, and as you know, there's no hard copy of your assignment that gets handed in on a campus or anything, only electronic. You upload it electronically. I will mark it online. So what happens, because it's a PDF document, I actually download the document onto my laptop, and I mark the PDFs offline using Adobe. And then when I type on comments and everything, and when I'm finished, I re-upload your assignment to what do they call it, to that grade center where you'll be able to pick up the document, the marked document. Okay, and then you can open the document that I've marked. You can see what you got right, what you got wrong, and you can read my comments. This is very important. Make sure that you allow enough time before that final due date and time for your upload. You guys, I'm sure you're tired of hearing about load shedding, but you can have any other technical issue with your laptop or with your Wi-Fi that someone forgot to pay and it stops working at the last minute, or we know that often these things go down. Whatever happens, so don't try and upload at 8 or 8:30 at night on the day that your assignment is due, because that's really taking your life into your hands. So that's up to you to really to plan around that. Okay, so that second page is really just, oh yeah, this is an important point. So if for some reason your assignment upload takes place after 9 p.m. on the due date, the system will automatically mark it late, and I'm not allowed to mark it. What happens then is you have to apply on the Student Hub for permission for me to mark it as a late submission. Okay. So you can't send me an email, say, ma'am, sorry, I only uploaded at 9:30 or 10 o'clock because whatever. It's out of my hands. They keep the tutors neutral in these systems so that we don't favor one student over another, and so that we've got no control over the rules. So we have to abide by the rules, and if anything's late, you have to apply for me to be able to mark it. If you encounter any technical problems, either with the Learn system or Blackboard or with your own computer or whatever, again, don't message the tutor because we've got no access to the back end of the systems at all. Only the IT people do. So again, you would have to submit a ticket. Take screenshots of exactly what happened. Make sure that you, in your screenshot, you include that timestamp at the bottom of your screen that shows what time you were trying to do the upload when you encountered the problems, to prove that you were trying to upload the assignment before the due time. That's very important. And then log a ticket, attach your proof, and somebody will help you. Okay. All right, so this document will be uploaded, so you'll be able to read it at your own leisure when we are finished. Okay, Danelle, that's a very good question, and I'm very happy to see that you are thinking along those lines. So we're going to answer that question in a second on this on the next document. So let me just quickly upload the document that I'm calling the lesson plan, and then that question is addressed on this document. Okay, so remember, when I've got a document on the screen, you can control zooming in or zooming out on the document on your side. I can't do that for you. Top left-hand side, if you're on a laptop, there will be that little magnifying glass icon, and you can click on that and then zoom in or zoom out. Okay, so this is just technical information that we have to include on our lesson plans, because these lesson plans go to the national office as well. Here's just a reminder that it must be submitted as a PDF document. See your assignment brief for details. So here's the very first point that I am making on this lesson plan, and that's regards referencing. So even though we are a numeric module, if we are required to write answers that require us to do a discussion or a description or write a paragraph of some kind or another, then that absolutely has to be referenced in the normal way using the guidelines that you've been given for VC. Okay. If it's just a short little paragraph, you don't specifically have to use in-text referencing. You can just reference at the bottom. Even if it's your textbook, you have to reference that. If you've got information off the internet, you reference that, or if you've used some other source, reference it. And you also then have to have your list of references at the end of the assignment, or bibliography, whichever you prefer to call it, but it does have to be there. So in any event, what I would do for the assignment is make sure you've got a bibliography or reference page at the end, and even if the only reference on that page is your textbook, you make sure that you've put that there because you've consulted your textbook for the assignment. If it is a question, and we'll get there, like for instance, your question, your question 1, that's a table that you've got to, excuse me, just 1 second. That's a table that you have to produce. And something like that doesn't have to be referenced, or otherwise at the bottom of the table you can just give a textbook reference. But because obviously all of this information on this table in question 1 is going to come from various places in the textbook, you can't reference every single answer on the table. So if you just do one reference at the bottom, which is your textbook, or whether you use the website for your to look up everything, then you reference that website just once at the bottom of the table and then in your reference list. Okay, does that help you? Anybody else got a question regarding referencing? I do, as we're going through these questions, you see I do make some other notes in the notes for each specific question regarding referencing where appropriate as well. But I'm glad you asked that question because it really is important, and often we find that students who are in first year or doing a certificate or diploma program, they, particularly in the numeric modules, they forget that we are still doing academics. And as long as you are in academics as a student and handing in assignments or work of some kind, it will have to be referenced. Okay, so here in this blue block at the top, I have put these things here as highlights because these are the things that the students over and over again, year after year, is where they lose their marks. So when you've finished your assignment or as you're working on it, please guys, just come and have a look at the document and just read through these couple of sentences at the top and then go and have a look at your assignment. Make sure that you followed these instructions. I can assure you students lose marks here. So referencing and plagiarism we've addressed. When I say highlight and follow, when I say highlight, I mean as you are working with your question paper, which I assume you will have printed out, you take a highlighter and you actually highlight, you go to the required part of the question, highlight the important instructions to make sure you can go back afterwards and check, did I do what they asked me to do? Have I followed the required to the letter? And also double check that you're answering exactly what the question asked for. Sometimes students read a question and they kind of misread it because they think it's another question that they've seen somewhere else, and then they answer not what was asked for in this question paper. So be very careful and don't leave anything out, because again, sometimes a question will say, give me a description of X, Y, Z and explain why. So look for those ands and make sure you've answered all parts of a question. Very important to show all of your workings wherever you've done workings. So workings mean I multiplied something by something, then added it to something else, or I took two different answers and added them together to get a third answer for a different question. As soon as you've done something like that, you must show that on your answer book so that I can give you method marks if there's a problem somewhere and the final answer is incorrect. If you haven't written your workings down on your answer book, it can lead to lost marks. And often a question will say marks are allocated to workings. And even if it doesn't say that, your workings must be there. As a numeric student, that is super important. So if you carry on with finance or accounting modules, please always remember that. And then this last point is mostly for theoretical questions. So always look at how many marks are you going to get for this particular question, because that will tell you how much information you must provide. So a 5-mark question, you must make sure that there's 5 different facts that I can give you 5 marks. Don't just give me 2 little short sentences, and even though they are correct, and then wonder why you didn't get all 5 marks. Okay, and same thing, if there's only 2 or 3 marks for the question, don't write half a page, because you're wasting a lot of your time. So just bear that in mind. Danelle, also regarding, it comes back to your instructions for referencing and plagiarism. So I'm sure that they've given you guys workshops on plagiarism. So you know the rules on, what do the rules on plagiarism say? If you do quote directly from the textbook, which is not recommended, then you have to use inverted commas and then obviously reference the textbook. You preferably must what we call paraphrase, which means you read the textbook and then you write it out in your own words, in your own understanding. That still has to be referenced because you still used a source for your answer, but you then won't use quotation marks. But if for some reason you feel it's necessary to quote directly word for word out of the textbook, that has to be within quotation marks. But if you do that for 2 or 3 questions in a row, that's absolutely very bad form. You must use your own words, what we call paraphrasing. Don't just type directly out of the textbook. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Anyone else wondering about anything else to do with referencing or any sort of housekeeping issues regarding the assignment? I will go and show you the link for uploading your assignment and all the steps and everything in a minute, so don't worry about that. Actually, maybe I'll go and do that for you now before we go and have a look at the questions. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. I am going to just go out of this document for a second and share my screen. Okay, so in a moment you should see something that looks like a kaleidoscope. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. And if you follow where I'm going across, so I am now in what is my version of your module. So your module homepage might look slightly different to mine, but it should be more or less the same with this menu down the side, your announcements, etc. Okay, so down the left-hand side of your module, you will look for the menu heading Assessment Submissions, and you will go over here to Submission Links. You'll click on Submission Links, and it will here take you to this page. You read this part at the top here because it talks about the integrity declaration. So none of the system won't allow you to upload a document to an assignment link if you have not first accepted the integrity declaration. Okay, so you'll go to your assignment link and you'll click on that. Make sure it is the correct assignment number, so assignment 1, make sure it is that. And then sorry. And then when you are ready, you will go, probably you'll be uploading from your laptop. You'll go to Browse Local Files, find the file on your computer, double click it, and then it will attach it to this link. You must still click this plagiarism tools. I agree to submit my paper, otherwise it won't upload. If you need to type any comments, you upload that there, and then you click submit. So you have to do that. You have to complete the integrity declaration for each single assignment that you upload. Okay, so everybody knows where to find that. Everybody happy with that? Yes, if you go back to the screen where it says here write submission, you can do that where you click here and it will take you to something that looks like a Word type application, and you can type it directly in there. But I'm not sure how the system works, because remember, then you're going to have to be online in order to be able to do that. And I'm not too sure what happens if you get interrupted, how to save it. So that might not be first prize to do that. I do mention it on that assignment brief as well. And although over here it says SafeAssign accepts all these different document extensions, remember you are going to upload a PDF for me. You might upload docx's for other tutors and other modules, but for numeric ones, you're going to upload a PDF. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that screen for a second and then just go back to the lesson plan. Okay, so then let's just go through these questions. I've just made some notes on this lesson plan for you for each question, really just to assist you, to give you some guidelines as to where in your textbook you can go to find information that's going to help you with this particular question. Because I know it can be daunting. You guys are very pressed for time, and there's a lot of information in the learning units, and you can find yourself flipping backwards and forwards through the pages trying to find what's relevant for this particular question. So that's really what I've tried to do here. So remember, also for assignments, I can't give you answers to the assignment questions, but I can guide you in sort of where to go and look for similar questions in the textbook that will assist you to answer the assignment question. So with this first one, it's a fairly simple table. So if you look, I can put the assignment document up in a second as well after this, but if you've probably hopefully got your assignment documents printed out and in front of you. On the table for question 1, down the left-hand side, you've got a list of account names. And then across the top of the table, there is a column for the different elements that we find or use in drawing up our financial statements. So in our financial statements, we've got current assets and non-current assets, and current liabilities and non-current liabilities. We've got income and expenses, and then we've also got proprietary accounts, which are the owner's accounts, the capital, and the drawings. So with each of these names of the accounts on the left-hand side, all you have to do is identify in which column does that account belong. It will only belong in one column, and if you put a cross in 2 columns, I will have to ignore both of those answers. You have to only tick one column. So all you have to do is put a cross in the column where you've identified that that account belongs. So where you can find help or where the text backing this up is in section 2.1 in your textbook, the accounting equation. And then from there all the way through to where do we go? All the way through to the end of proprietary accounts on page 37, and then page 38, you've got the discussion on profit, where they discuss income and expenses on page 39. Page 40, we discuss revenue. So, and then we've got examples. So you really want to go all the way through to probably the end of example 2.7. All of that text from page 25 through to the end of page 42 is where the content or the text is that explains how all of these elements work. And then example 2.10, which in my version of the textbook is on page 52. You've got something called what we call the chart of accounts, which is going to be a very handy little cheat sheet where you can see it is a table listing all of the elements under what falls under assets, what falls under owner's equity in the middle, and on the right-hand side, what falls under liabilities, split between current and non-current, and split between income and expenses. So that will also assist you. But guys, try not to just go straight to page 52 and use that and then fill it in. Try and identify correctly yourself which of those columns each of those accounts fall into, because remember, when it comes to the exam, you're not going to have your textbook in front of you, and if you've just kind of skipped the reading of the text and used shortcuts, it's going to catch up with you when you get to the exam. Okay, so you shouldn't have too much problem with that question, and it is for 5 marks. I think there's 10, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's 10, so that will be half a mark for each, for identifying each account correctly. Any questions about question 1? Okay, then in question 2, this is for 20 marks, and this is made up of 5 different sub-questions, so 2.1 all the way through to 2.5. So these questions here, you will find it covers, these are mostly theoretical questions. So, and the answers will come out of somewhere in Learning Unit 1 and Learning Unit 2. I haven't given you section numbers because that would literally be giving you the answers. So you are going to have to read through the textbooks and find the relevant section in your textbooks that applies to each of those 5 questions, and then answer it. So here, because they're asking kind of explain, describe, etc., please read the question very carefully and make sure you're answering exactly what they asked you to do. And pay attention to the number of marks allocated to each question so that you make sure you're giving me sufficient information. And for this question, remember that referencing will be required. So for 2.1, for instance, they say, in your own words, explain to your friend how his aunt. So you must refer to the sentence that they've given you, which says your friend has a wealthy aunt. So you must write an answer that is basically saying to your friend, well, I suggest that your aunt does whatever, whatever, in your own words, and you answer the question. So there's 2 parts. Explain to your friend if your aunt was an investor, and then a second part of the question, explain if your aunt was a lender. So you'll see that question is out of 6 marks. So there will be probably 3 marks for the explanation as an investor and 3 marks for the explanation as a lender. So make sure that you answer like that. Okay, then question 2.2 is your friend is not sure, he's aware his choice, and then again, briefly explain in your own words to your friend how each of the following 5 factors will impact his choice of business form. So here you'll see there's 6 marks. There are 5 factors, so one of them is probably worth 2 marks and the rest are worth 1 mark. So make sure you have a sentence for each one of those 5, so you have answered the full question, and your answer must not just be a copy out of the textbook for what legal personality is. You must relate it back to your friend and his business. So then, relating back to question 2.2, which ownership form would you recommend for your friend? And why would you recommend that? So that's an example of where I've said make sure that you answer all parts of the question. So we've got the word and. So for 2 marks, 1 mark, which ownership form would you recommend? And for the second mark, why would you recommend that? So you can see again, it's only 2 marks. So don't write half a page. We just want 2 marks worth for that answer. And then 2.4, your friend has heard that there are 2 branches of accounting. Name the 2 branches. So that's one part of the question. And then we've got that word and again. Briefly explain the differences between the 2 branches. So we've got 4 marks. So there is in all likelihood 1 mark, probably half a mark each, for naming the 2 branches. And then underneath that, compare the one branch to the other branch. In other words, in branch X, we do this, whereas in branch Y, this is our practice. And then go to the second point. In branch X, for this matter, we do this, and in branch Y, we do something else. Okay. It's very important the way you lay out your answers to make sure that you get all of those marks that are available. You can easily get really, really good marks for this assignment. You keep your wits about you and you're very careful about how you answer the questions. And then the last one, just for 2 marks, explain to your friend the difference between a journal and a general ledger. So take note, they haven't said a general journal, it just says a journal. So what is a journal and what is a general ledger? And how are they different? Because remember, the question says, explain to your friend the difference between. So you'll say a journal is XYZ, whereas a general ledger is ABC. Only 2 marks, so again, you don't want reams of information there. Keep it simple and to the point, and you'll get your 2 marks. Okay, so Jamie has asked, do we write accounting on campus? I take it that you're talking about the exam, Jamie. I'm not sure if it's for this module, but I have put up in the announcements, or perhaps it was probably in the introductory collab that I addressed that. If your PAS says that you are writing on campus, then you are writing on campus. So you will follow the PAS. Whatever the PAS says, then that's what you do. Okay, the PAS is always correct. And even if I give you a date or information, if the PAS says something else, the PAS is the Bible regarding those kinds of, that type of information. And always make sure you've got the latest version of the PAS. I still haven't gone and looked at the PAS again to see if they've uploaded the PAS that have got the exam dates on it yet. At that new version might very well be out. So just always check that you've got the latest version, and then just help each other out on your WhatsApp group. If one of you notices there is a new version of the PAS, just let everybody know, and everybody can access the latest version. Okay, dokes. So then question 3 is also only for 5 marks. So in this question, again, please read carefully. Don't misread the information. They are asking us, excuse me, to calculate the profit or the loss. So we don't know whether the company made a profit or whether they made a loss for the month of December. So they've said we must calculate the profit or the loss made by Jeff Wilson Wholesalers during December 2022. So December 2022 is 1 month. So for the month of December, using the below information. So you will see that in the assignment, both the columns are headed 1 December 2022 and 1 December 2022. So obviously they've made a typo. One of the columns should say the 31st of December, so that we've got one column is the first day of the month of December and the other column is the end of the month. So we can then calculate, taking from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, what the amount of the profit or loss is for the month. So I have put this note here on this lesson plan. The date at the top of the first column should read the 31st of December. So that would be for the end of the month, and the column on the right-hand side is the 1st of December. I have sent a message to the national office asking them to confirm for me that that is the case, that the first column is 31st and the second column is the 1st. I am in the meantime assuming that that is the case, because that if it's the other way around, I will post an announcement to you when I get a message back from the head of program. Okay. And then underneath the little table, there's the sentence that says, assume that no capital was added to the business during the year. So capital means that the owner did not make any new contributions to the business, either in cash or in goods. So the capital of the business was exactly the same at the beginning of the, in this case, it should also read month, not year, at the beginning of the month, because they're only talking about the month of December. And also no drawings were made during the month of December. So that means capital and drawings, those two accounts, from the 1st of the month to the 31st of the month, they stayed the same. They did not change. So what that means, and hopefully you will have realized this from your textbook and going over these accounts, is that any change to owner's equity, remember owner's equity, the total of owner's equity is capital minus drawings in brackets plus income minus expenses in brackets. That's what makes up owner's equity. So they're telling us that capital and drawings did not change. So we know that any change in owner's equity in this particular month is going to be as a result of either the profit or the loss for the month and nothing else, because nothing else affected it. Okay. That's a nice little question to test whether you have understood your accounting equation, and that you can then work out the missing amounts. So in that question, you'll see there are 3 question marks. So what I want to see are workings for the owner's equity amount for the 31st of December 22 column. I want to see workings for the question mark under owner's equity on the 1st of December 2022 column. And then I want to see workings for that 3rd question mark at the bottom, which will be the amount of the profit or loss from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. So that's for 5 marks. And also take note in bold at the bottom, they have said your answer must indicate clearly whether that amount that you've worked out is a profit or whether it is a loss. So you must have the word profit or loss written next to that amount that you're going to write down for that 3rd question mark. Those little places are where you can lose marks if you haven't paid attention. Okay, any questions on that one? You might have more questions on those on when you are actually sitting down and working through those questions. But as long as you, what I'm trying to do this evening is make sure you understand exactly what's required of you, unpack the questions so that it's very clear what you have to do. Okay, so then our question 4 is for 40 marks, and this is mostly from Learning Unit 2. And you'll see at the required for this question, they have said calculate the owner's equity in the business as at the 31st of March 2023, so at the end of the month, by showing the effect of each of these transactions in this table on the accounting equation. And you'll see that over the page on your assignment question paper, they show you exactly how they want you to lay this out. Example, so those are the columns that you are going to create on your answer book. Date, account debit, the account credited, assets, equals, and then a column for owner's equity and a column for liabilities. And there they've described the transaction in the example, and they have showed you exactly how they want you to fill in the information under each of those 6 columns. So I've made a note over here. Please take note of the opening balances, because you need those in order to calculate the final owner's equity at the end of March. So you will, in your table, on the first row of your table, you will have the opening balances as at the 1st of March for your assets, owner's equity, and liabilities. Then underneath that, you will then analyze each of those transactions that they've given you in the table. And then on the very bottom row of your answer, you will then work out what the final total is for assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Does that make sense? Remember here they're saying ignore VAT. We're only going to tackle VAT in the 3rd learning unit. So just pretend VAT does not exist in your life. We don't have to think about it in this question at all. So that's also very important. Pay attention. There's just in the line just above the table in brackets, they've got there ignore VAT. So what that means is pretend VAT does not exist. And then what I've given here on the little lesson plan is in your textbooks the following questions: 2.7, 2.9, 2.11 and 2.12, as well as revision question 7. The revision questions are at the back of the book in the what do they call that section, the question bank. Sorry, let me just find it. They've got a section called revision questions and solutions right at the end of learning unit 7. I don't know why they called it a learning unit, but learning unit 7 in your textbook is a set of revision questions and solutions. They usually call it the question bank in the textbook, but in this book they've actually called it learning unit 7. So learning unit 7 is just a collection of extra questions over and above the questions that exist in each of your learning units. And then you guys hopefully have realized that right at the back of the textbook, you've then got the question solutions, which are the solutions to every single question in each learning unit throughout your text. Okay, so these questions are all questions that also require you to either calculate the equity of the business or require you to analyze a transaction under the accounting equation. So you can follow all of those solutions to these questions to kind of see exactly how that works. So I would suggest that you go through at least 1 or 2 of these to familiarize yourself with how the question works. Particularly the question that there's a couple of them where you do in these questions have to calculate the owner's equity. Some of them only require you to analyze transactions, and then there are, I think, 2 of them that also ask you to calculate the owner's equity in the business. It's a very good question because by this question, they are testing 2 different things. Again, do you understand how the accounting equation works from the start of an accounting period to the end of an accounting period, that your balances in the accounting equation will change because of all of the transactions that took place in that accounting period, such that your owner's equity when you started out is going to be different when you finish up that particular month or financial year or whatever it happens to be. And then also this is, I've just put this in because I had this question from a student. You'll see in the example, in required, where they say for each transaction, show how the transactions will affect, and after where it says ignore VAT, it then says clearly indicate increases and decreases. So this is also vital. If you don't indicate with a plus or a minus whether that particular element of the equation is increasing or decreasing, you will get no marks for the amount that you put in that column, because they are specifying clearly indicate increases with a plus and decreases with a minus. So remember, what they are talking about is, we are saying, did the transaction lead to an asset increasing? If that is the case, I'm going to put under assets a plus next to the amount by which the asset increased. If the transaction led to an asset decreasing, then I will put a minus and then the amount by which the asset decreased. So if you look at the example that they've got on your question paper, the transaction is, we repaid a bank loan of 25,000 Rand. So always in questions, you have to identify the two account names that are involved in the transaction. There will always be a minimum of two accounts, because remember, our accounting equation has to balance, and our debits always have to exactly equal our credits. Otherwise, the equation won't balance afterwards. So in this case, the bank account is going to have some money, 25,000 Rand, taken out of it. Bank account is an asset, so it is decreasing by 25,000. That's why we put minus 25 under assets. And then the other account involved is our loan account. We are paying back part of the loan, which means the outstanding balance of our loan, the amount of money we owe the bank or whoever we've borrowed the money from, is going to be decreasing. So under liabilities, because a loan is a liability, the amount of that liability will be decreasing by 25,000 Rand. So in this case, we are decreasing an asset by 25 and we are decreasing a liability by 25. So you can see by our accounting equation is still going to balance. The left-hand side will equal the right-hand side after this transaction, because we took 25,000 Rand away from the left-hand side and from the right-hand side. So the left-hand side will still equal the right-hand side after this example that we've got. Okay, so there's lots of examples for you guys to go through there. So just make sure that you go through that and understand, follow exactly how they did the example. Where did they put pluses? Where did they put minuses? Why did they do that? And also get some practice in these questions in identifying those names of the accounts that you are going to need for your journal entry or your transaction, because it's basically a journal entry that you are writing down. Something is going to be debited, something is going to be credited. In this case, we're not talking about debits and credits. We are saying which element of the accounting equation is going to increase and which element is going to decrease. Any questions for me for question 4? So then all that's left is to have a look at question 5 and make sure that you know what you guys have to do here. So question 5 is out of 30 marks, and this is also mostly information that's going to come from Learning Unit 2. Your Learning Unit 1 is really just sort of some background theory and information. And then the real nitty-gritty starts in Learning Unit 2. The real, when I say nitty-gritty, the actual bookkeeping / accounting, practical side of it starts in Learning Unit 2. So this is a very nice question. What they've done here is they've said the following balances appeared in the books of Saxby Plastics as at the 31st of January 2023, which was the last day of their financial year of the business. So this would then be in effect what we call a trial balance, because when we take a list of all of our general ledger accounts with their closing balances for the year, and we list them as it is on this page in a question, that is called a trial balance. So you take note in the amounts column, and this is deliberate. They haven't given you a debit and a credit column, and they also haven't put brackets around some of the numbers and not some of the other numbers. And the reason that they have done that is because the entire question requires you to identify each of these amounts in the list of balances. Is that amount an income? Is it an expense? Is it a non-current asset? Is it a current liability, etc.? So your first job in question 5 is to take your question paper and next to each of these lines, write down EX if it's an expense, or INC if it's income, or NC for non-current, A for asset, etc. And correctly identify which category of your chart of accounts or accounting equation do each of those amounts fall under. Once you're happy that you've got that correct, then completing the questions is going to be a walk in the park. Because, for instance, question 5.1 says, calculate your total income. So you will then just go down the list and look for all the accounts that you wrote INC next to. You're going to write them down one underneath each other and total them. What you must not do is just write the total down on your answer. Remember, your workings must be there. So you'll see that question is out of 10.5 marks. You must write down the name of the account, the amount, the name of the account, the amount. So a heading that will say income, and underneath that, each individual income account, name and amount, and then a total at the bottom. And then you'll do the same for expenses. A heading that says expenses, and underneath that, name, amount, name, amount, name, amount, and then a total for the expenses. And pretty much all of the questions are going to be similar. The next one says, what is the total of the current assets? What's the total of the non-current assets? So you can't do this question if you cannot identify correctly the category of each of these amounts on page 7 of your question paper. You've got lots of assistance in the textbook. You've got the chart of accounts. You've got all those questions and examples in the textbook to go and find that account name and identify where it belongs. And then right at the end, so that goes up to 5.5, and then question 5.6 asks you to calculate the net profit or loss for the year. So how are you going to calculate a profit or a loss? What is your equation going to be that you're going to use for 5.6? And remember, you're going to use your answers from question 5.1 to question 5.5. You're going to use those answers to calculate question 5.6 and 5.7. So what is your calculation going to be to get the answer to question 5.6? How are you going to calculate whether you've made a profit or a loss for the year? Anybody? You can type in the chat box, or you can just call out over your microphone. Bash, don't be. I'm sure you all know you're just too shy to give an answer because you're worried that your answer is going to be incorrect. So I'm going to point you to page 38. Whoopsie. 2.2.2 in the textbook, and the heading profit. And that section underneath there is going to explain to you how you will calculate whether the business has made a profit or a loss. So you will find the formula on page 41. So read through that section, understand exactly what you've got to do, and then you will be able to do the calculation for 5.6. And then similarly for question 5.7, calculate the owner's equity. You are going to use which equation? How do we calculate owner's equity? We use the accounting equation to solve for owner's equity. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Okay. And then the last one for 3 marks is again, it's just a kind of a little theoretical question. They want to grow their business during 2023. So name 3 things that the owner can do to increase their sales revenue in 2023. So that means that name 3 things the owner can do. What are 3 actions that the owner can take that would result in his income increasing? So as long as it is a valid answer, you can write anything down there as long as it is valid. It doesn't have to come out of the textbook as long as it is true. I'll be able to give you those 3 marks. Okay. Anybody thought of any other questions in the meantime? Okay, what I want to do, I don't want to keep you too long. I know we've been an hour already. I'm just quickly going to pop the assignment document up on the screen. Hopefully you guys have all, where did I put it? Hopefully you guys have all downloaded the assignment document. You found it and you know where it is and you've used it. Oh, where did it go? I went out of that screen too quickly. There we go. All right. Busy loading. Okay, so also just take note at the front page here, it says total 10 hours. Remember, that is just a suggested time for how long it's likely to take you to complete this assignment. And it may very well, whoopsie, why did that happen? It may very well take longer than 10 hours. So allow yourself sufficient time to finish this, please. I don't want to see panicked emails from students on the day. Ma'am, where can I find the assignment? I can't find it online anywhere. Okay, so here's our table. So you guys know how if you've got, I wonder if this allows you to do it, I'm not sure. Whether you are able to convert this PDF back to a Word document, then you can copy the table from the question paper and paste it into your answer book that you are creating in Word, and then you can just fill in, put your crosses in the various columns. Okay, so you need to duplicate this table exactly as it appears here in your answer book, and a cross or a tick wherever you've chosen. So remember, for each account, so for capital, you are going to put a cross or a tick in one column only. There's only one correct answer for each of these. So creditors control, only one of these columns will have a tick or a cross in it. If you put marks in more than one column, it will automatically make that answer incorrect. You can't give me 2 guesses and hope that I will mark one of them correct. So your question 2, This is the one where these are mostly theoretical questions. So this is one where you have to really read slowly and carefully what information they're giving you. Make sure you've understood that, and then make sure that you answer exactly what they've asked in each of these questions, so that you're taking note of the number of marks allocated to each of these questions. And then this question here, the question 3, these are the 3 question marks I was talking about. So I want to see workings on your answer book. You can obviously is just duplicate this table exactly as it is, and then fill in these missing answers over here. Which is probably the easiest way to go. But you have to show me how you calculated that question mark, how you calculated that question mark, and what was your calculation, something times something, or something plus something, or something minus something. What was your calculation to get this third answer over here? Please don't forget, you must use the word profit or loss next to this final answer, so the rand value, and next to it you're going to type profit or loss, and all of your workings must be shown. So your question 4, this is the list of transactions that you're going to analyze under the accounting equation. So they said here the business started trading on the 1st of January 2023. The following balances appeared in their books as at or on the 1st of March 2023. Here are the balances. So in order to be able to answer this question, calculate the owner's equity in the business as at the 31st of March, you have to take these opening balances into account. Your answer, your totals at the 31st of March will be your opening balances, and then plus or minus the amounts for each of these transactions. And your answer book page, or your however you're compiling it, must be in this format. So you will duplicate these columns in your answer book, and as I said earlier, your very first row will be your opening balances, so that you have got an opening balance for assets, owners, equity, and liabilities. And then underneath that, using this example to guide you as to exactly how you need to do it, you will complete each transaction exactly in that manner. Okay, so your answer must look like that table. And then the very last one, with this list of accounts, these are your balances as at the 31st of January, which is the last day of the financial year. So remember, what I would do is I would take my pen or pencil, and next to each one of these, probably over here so that you can see them in a nice neat row, I would say capital, is that an expense, an income, an asset, a liability, or proprietary account? And I would just have some kind of little short form, INC for income, EXP for expense, and I would write that next to each one of these. So that do that first, so that when you answer these questions, calculate the total income and calculate the total expenses. You can just go through your list on the previous page and look for all of the accounts that you wrote the word income or the INC next to. Write them down. You must list them, because there are 10.5 marks, which you won't get 10.5 marks if all you've done is write one total. Remember, your total might be incorrect, but if you write everything down, you will get marks for all of your workings. total current assets, non-current assets, current liabilities, non-current liabilities. You need to identify all of those. And then using your answers, whichever one of these is appropriate, you will then calculate the net profit or loss, and you will calculate the owner's equity, also using your answers from these 5 totals that you calculated here. Okay, and then this last one is just a little theory question. In your own words, name 3 things, 3 actions the owner can take to increase sales. Okay, guys, so hopefully this has been helpful to you. And I'm sure this is all going to make a lot more sense once you start working through the assignment and start trying to come up with some answers if you haven't already done so. And then as you do that, you can then ask me questions and I will answer you as soon as I am able. I just want to also let you know while I am on here, I am going to be away from my home base next week. So if you do send me messages, it might take me longer than normal to answer you. I should have access to Wi-Fi at certain times at the place that I am going to, but I am going to a fairly remote place. They said there is Wi-Fi, but it's not great. So I'm going to have to play it by ear. I should be able to get my messages and emails, etc., and I'll answer you when I'm able. But it won't be instantaneous. Okay. But your assignment is only due the following week, Wednesday, and I will have answered all of your questions by then. So you will be able to sort out any queries that you might have. Okay. Any final questions from anybody? Otherwise, I will leave you to get on with your evening, and I hope you have a lovely evening. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to marking your assignments. I'm sure you guys are all going to do great. Remember, the documents will be uploaded, the recording will be uploaded, so you'll be able to access all of this throughout next week while you're working on your assignment. Okay, all right, guys, great. I am going to end the recording. Thanks so much, Brooklyn, and you too.